guys. So I'm going to be whispering so I don't get in trouble here. I also may sound a little extra creepy because I'm sick, so I apologize for that, but this is the only way I can do this now. So I thought I would review this move here because we were, looking at it when it happened. So um, really quick for context. Let's go to the 4-hour chart, and we can see here why this level I thought was important. I already had it marked here with this yellow line, so sort of around there, 24,800. But if you go to the profile here, this is a 4-hour chart, and you can see that this was a strong area here, around 25, and then it starts tapering off, and then we have this here that it just like sticks out again, back again, and that's sort of why I thought it was important, because that's the very edge of this whole value area that we were trading, that we've been topping out at. Every top that we've been putting on here has been into the 25,000s, but the whole area here is kind of strong but tapering off. But then we get that level here that kind of like stands, becomes kind of strong again. But the most important part is that once we get below that 24,800, we have like a volume void here, and we don't get really strong value areas until we get down into the 24,300. So it's like 500 points below. So we could say maybe 24,400s, 430s here. So still, like a 400 point area here. So it's basically. You scared me, dude. Let's mute this for a second. So so can I mute this shit? Just a minute. I guess I can't. Okay, whatever. So that's why I think this area is important, because if we break below it, we have the risk or the possibility of maybe just creating real momentum to fill in this gap. That's why I thought it was important. However, in the past few days, this is a 1 minute, we've traded below 24,800 a couple times. So it's not that like, and we haven't sold off, right? It's always been, it actually 24,800 has been acted sort of like a the 80s, basically. All this area between the low 80s and the 80s has been acting sort of as a messy point of control to this whole consolidation we've had. 860s apparently, if you look at it there. But then it moves a little bit lower here into the 830s. So the 800s area. But what makes it different today is that yesterday we had some pretty capitulatory action, and when it breaks here below the 24,800s, it did make a huge, pretty strong move down into the 600s, but then it got saved, and this happened. And I think this was the tariff decision day, and this was like very wild, crazy action. But that was sort of like a first indication of what can happen if we actually get below the 800 area. And then today, or this was like overnight, this is a trade that Luca took at the the midnight open. We get the sell off, and basically the floor is literally that level, right? 24,800. So this is like the most recent like thing. Then we got this like weird, sketchy, fabricated bounce. That's making a lower high from the high that we made the night before, and that's why I thought that, and then we had this trend line here, so I thought that we were going to break below trend. I thought that a very good trade would be momentum on the break of this into that 24,800 as a target. Turns out that even though it got there, we didn't get that momentum. It was just pure chop. But I also knew that if we took out the 24,800, we would get momentum, and that's exactly what happened. So anyways, that's sort of the context. And if we zoom in, what we can see here is that I think I wrote on the chat as it was happening. When I saw it approaching, I saw, oh, this thing is flushing into the 800s. I actually saw it when I caught it when it was flushing through it, and it didn't really respect. So we get, this is important, right? Because this is the type of, this is where we're going to decide whether we're going to flip or we're going to fade. So this is, that choppy action that when we decided to stop trading, this is sort of like that type of action that was happening there. But there's a point here in the middle of this consolidation where it just, boom, it goes, it flushes. And we need to pay attention to this volume candle here, which, understand expectedly, it happened into right at 24,800 because that's where we're expecting the bounce. So we got a lot of volume there, but it didn't bounce, not even an inch. We got that volume exhaustion there in the low 800s, goes up 2 or 3 points, and then bam, keeps flushing, takes out the low of that, and all that volume is trapped, and it keeps flushing lower all the way into the 70s. So that is already pretty much all we needed to see, because this is supposed to be pushing back off of that area. It couldn't. So when I saw this happening, I should actually be moving this here, because that's when I said, okay, this thing is retracing back, and if it can't reclaim, or if I get any signs on the tape, sorry, moving this back here, where we're getting some selling here into this pop, as long as this thing doesn't reclaim the 800s, this is already it. I mean, I usually have like the 780s as an overshoot, like a 20-point overshoot. This thing made it all the way into the 70s. So if it doesn't reclaim here, and it didn't, it got up to like 798, and it couldn't get higher. So that's where you flip momentum. But you flip momentum not in the sense, it's not like a quick scalp momentum, like for example when it happened here at the open, where we got, after this consolidation off of the top here in the 2530s, looks like the bottom of the consolidation was like in the 960s, 970s. Once this then flushes here below 950s, it's a quick thing. You need to be quick, and then it's a quick scalp, and this was super fast. But it's not really a meaningful level. It's just because it got below 950 and below the opening range, but it's nothing significant on a higher time frame. This is different. this is a really important level. So this one, you flip momentum, but you and we'll see this on the tape in a minute. Okay, so you flip momentum, you short any pops, and you just need to wait. You need to be well positioned and wait for people to start capitulating, which is what started happening. And if we switch over to a 1 minute, and again, this is new for me because I used to not do this a lot because I was just focused on the quick scalps. But in this case, if you switch to 1 minute, once you know that we are switching to momentum, then you start paying attention to this 10 EMA that I have the 10 EMA here. And you have to get your entry obviously up here. But then this gives you conviction. One, to not be scared off when you see these pops, because these are meaningful pops. But also, if you did take some position, some of it off, these pops is an opportunity for you to add the positions back on. So that's it. And the other thing is this thing started showing signs of real exhaustion here, and I kept pressing. So I think I added here when it popped up here. Again, if we go to the 10 EMA, it was like right on at the EMA, and I got away with that one. But then when there's a point where it's not pushing lower, and you're seeing all this volume down here, you have to know that this is actually, it already has exhausted, and any moment it can just pop out of this consolidation here and then go and then bounce. So in the 1 minute, that looked like this. So this one, which is already pretty scary, which is 2 green candles, because it's moving up into the 10 EMA, there's still a case for just putting it back on here, because it's respecting the 10 EMA, and it did. And this move here after that is actually pretty significant because it comes all the way down into the 70s, so that's like 30 points. But after that, it's not really flushing and keep going lower, and then it pops up again into the 10 EMA. It looks like it respects it, but it can't keep making lower lows. That's it. The thing move is over. That's when it was pretty obvious that it was over. So anyways, let's watch the footage really quick. And I started recording after it had already flushed. So it was already already flushed here. And it had already retraced and failed off of the 800. I still have no position on there. And I think this, by the way, I traded it really badly. So, and we'll go over the reasons why. So here, oh, I see. So I put on orders here in the 90s, but it's because I was late to it. So I missed it. But I'm still hoping that this comes back up to get me filled. It never came back up. You can see the orders up there. So then I decided to chase it down here, because I knew this is how much conviction I had that this thing was momentum. Then I was willing to chase it down, and it kept moving away from me. So I thought, okay, this is not coming back into the 90s, so let's just put the order and I chased here in the upper 90s. So first, not great thing, but not really a mistake if you ask me, because that's what had to be done. The problem here is that I'm chasing it, and if I'm chasing it, I should expect this thing to move against me a couple of times, because it's a bad entry, right? And I already missed my opportunity to get a good entry in the 90s. At least I'm not hitting the bottoms as I see it. The bottom here would be maybe down here in the 60s. So I do have a bad entry, but it's not terrible. It's still, 780. And here's where I do some really stupid thing, which is you start doubting yourself, and you start, because it's uncomfortable, and then you kind of like panic out. So here was a little bit in the money, kind of stupid. I start, because I have such a bad entry, then I start taking profits here, I think. Well, it looks like I didn't. Yeah, I took some off there, and then it moves like here. It moves against me, and then I take it all off, and then just and then it kind of like put it back on, take it all off, thinking that I think this is gonna bounce on me. Then I put it back on even lower, so now I have an even worse entry. So it's like I'm kind of ruining the trade. And that's the first thing that I think, especially here, is going against me. I think at this point I realize, like, hey, don't be stupid. You have a bad entry, but well, there's nothing you can do this thing now. You just need to wait through this discomfort. And I think I do. Or at some point here, I take it off just to be break even, which is even more stupid. So, or maybe I take quick profits here because I was uncomfortable. So the point here is that, let's stop it there for a minute. The first thing, so when you are fading, when you're in mean reversion mode and you are fading, the top or the bottom of the range, you always know it's going to be a quick scalp. And if it's taking too long to pop, for example, if you're fading off the bottom and it's taking too long to lift, sometimes, well, it's just okay to get out, because if it's not bouncing, it could mean that it's going to just flush through, and you don't want to be in that position. So you never want it to go against you. You cannot let it go against you, not even, maybe 2 or 3 points. And you have to be like really confident that you got in at the right spot where the real buying was stepping in. But you can't really let it go against you. But when you flip to momentum, then the mindset changes a little bit. You have to have conviction, confidence that you are flipping into momentum because that was the right thing to do. And if you have if everything lines up and you are right, then you need to let it. It's a waiting thing, and you need to wait for it. And sometimes it will go against you, and as long as it doesn't, you set your stop. And as long as it doesn't go above that stop, you need to let it play out. So, anyways, that's I didn't quite do that here, and now I'm taking profits way too early. It's just a very clumsy way that I traded it. But here's the important thing, okay, aside from my entries and stuff, just pay attention to the speed of the tape, because that's what's going to give you conviction. You're not just waiting because you're just watching it, no, you're waiting because you haven't seen any exhaustion on the tape. So once it breaks, the whole thing with rhythm and tape speed is that it always goes from tape acceleration to the next tape acceleration. So if I'm fading the range here, if I fade it off of it, we'll get perhaps like in this volume candle here, for example, we get tape acceleration, bam, and then you get long. And then you really have to hold until you get the next tape acceleration. And when that happens, bam, it's the next exhaustion, and then you get out, and so forth. In this case, it breaks below, bam, breaks below that level. When you get your entry here on what we would expect this to be some acceleration or not, whatever it is. In this case, that doesn't matter much because you already decided that now it's a directional trade. And you really, now you're paying attention to speed on the tape because there's no reason to get out or to take any off until you get the first sign of exhaustion, which would be some tape acceleration. So when you're waiting there for this to flush, that should be what gives you confidence, because you're safe until you see a real change in character on the tape, and that hasn't happened here yet. So we're kind of like waiting there. This thing keeps pushing lower. Sometimes it'll drift back up, but if it drifts back up and there hasn't really been tape acceleration, it's meaningful. It doesn't mean anything. Here's the other thing that I need to mention. We have some block orders come in here. This is one thing that put me off a little bit. In fact, this is the reason why. Okay, we'll get into that later. We're seeing some block orders, but we're not seeing an increase in speed. So I took some off there just because I saw some block orders. But that doesn't mean anything. We're seeing block orders because we're getting below an important level. And then big players are putting orders through. But we haven't seen that meaningful acceleration and speed in the tape. So there's no reason for us to be taking anything off. Even here, I'm taking some off because I'm just too cautious, like scared. These little, moves upward mean nothing because they're not caused by a real bounce action, because we haven't seen speed acceleration. Maybe accelerates a little bit, but it's no big deal. Also, the fact that we're in the 760s, we're just 10 points away from the 750, so that's also a factor, right? We know that 750, that half number, is also meaningful, and we're so close to it that we might just hit it. So, and the fact that we haven't gotten that exhaustion yet makes us think that, okay, we shouldn't be taking any off until we make it down there. The other thing, obviously, I need to start being on calls. I can't be wasting mental bandwidth typing shit while I'm in the middle of a trade, right? You see, this little pop here means nothing. And it shouldn't be scaring you off. Look, it's moving all the way up into my entry. And it still shouldn't be shaking me off. Instead, in any case, I should be adding there, because we haven't gotten that exhaustion. I'm going to pause here. Well, here we see quite a bit of buy orders, but before this was pretty thin, and all the heavy orders were here on the sell. So anyways, we haven't gotten that exhaustion yet. So I should be confident, and if anything, I should be adding there. Right? The speed of the tape is going to dictate everything. Bam. I don't know if you saw that there, but now we're getting some real exhaustion there. It's not the definitive final exhaustion, but that's a reason to take some off. And that would have made sense. And we're in the 50s now. And still, after that bit of exhaustion, we're not getting a real bounce. But if it does start moving up higher, then we would be careful, because we're like, okay, this move up higher is generated by real exhaustion. Before that had not happened. In this case, it's staying heavy. We're cautious because it could just bounce off of the 750s. It did overshoot a little bit into the 740s, but maybe it just stops running higher because we did get exhaustion there. But here's the thing. it didn't bounce, and now it's pushing below the 750s. And here is where then it's the next decision. We're getting below that half number. We didn't get definitive, because sometimes it does overshoot into the 40s and then bounces, but I didn't see exhaustion there. So this, and then looking at the chart again, then you look at the geometry of the chart, you see that this move is just starting, it's just beginning. You see that the 10 EMA here is way up there in the 780s. So this is a moment to decide to even add to that position, because there's more downside. And you see how it's now pushing against the lows, and that's here I'm adding. Kind of stupid, because I should have added way earlier. I should have added it when it was here in the mid to high 40s, when I already knew. I remember thinking this at the moment, like, okay, this is like the next leg below the half number. It's breaching that number, no meaningful exhaustion, I should be getting in, and I didn't do that until it got down here. But anyways, so I'm adding there, and that brings my average way down. But I'm feeling confident again, because I haven't seen real exhaustion. We see a ton of block orders, no real exhaustion. I don't know how I started taking off some positions there. Okay, really stupid. Oh, here I took it all off. Okay, so again, I didn't trade this well at all. There, I had to fucking stay in. This move up meant nothing. If anything, we're getting a move up closer to the 750s. You need to be adding there. You need to be adding, because we haven't gotten that exhaustion that's telling us that it found a bottom. So there's nothing. It's not bouncing against anything. This shit is all meaningless, especially if we are paying attention to the 1 minute and the 10 EMA here. And the EMA here, I believe, is like in the 60s or even 70s. So if anything, you just wait for this thing to pop up, as you keep adding. The higher it goes, as long as it's below that 10 EMA, waiting for the next leg, because you know there will be a next leg, because it hasn't exhausted yet. So I don't know what shit I'm writing there, but right now I think I'm flat. So I'm not, I don't know. Instead of, there's where I should be paying attention, be fully focused, and trying to add to that position again, or put the position back on, I guess. Let's see if I close that fucking Discord. This is really also, to me, it's really ruining my focus. It's just having to fucking be on chat explaining everything that I'm doing. I need to be on a call, on the voice call. So there it is. Got rejected there. That seems like the moment. So I failed to add where I could have. I had an opportunity to have in the high 50s, mid 50s. I didn't. Now we're pressing against the lows again. Okay, so I missed that whole part. And this bit into the 30s did look like some real exhaustion. But again, no bounce. And we're now just very close to 700. So we would expect this to now give us more momentum. So I started shorting there. Again, not great. And I'm started shorting. Again, I'm chasing, because I missed this whole fucking move. I could have entered 20 points higher instead of typing stuff in the chat. I should have added back there instead of chasing the bottom here. But anyways, here I have conviction, because I haven't seen it exhaust. And then I'm trying to put orders up there in the 50s, thinking that, well, if I get lucky, maybe this thing retraces back up into that area. I don't think it does. At least here I'm not, you know, I'm having a little bit more conviction there. I guess some of those orders get filled in. I'm putting in more orders there. I'm letting it go against me. But again, it's nothing I would never do in any other circumstance. But in this case, it's just like a capitulation that has not, it's not done yet, and it hasn't exhausted yet. So, but again, I shouldn't be in a position where I'm letting something move against me. And I wouldn't be in that position if I had put on the orders up there in the 50s when I knew I had to. Anyways, now it's pushing lower. And at this point, we're again, look at the tape how it stalled. And we are now just basically 10 points away from the low 700. So that's a just logical target area. So you're not going to be taking any off until this shit really flushes and you see price and volume capitulation, which we haven't seen. Look how the bids thin up there. That's really important. See how here how they thin up, and now we're getting a little bit more acceleration. I think I took some off there. I still have some on. And here, this is acceleration. So here, this is reasonable. This is okay for you to be taking it off. But it wasn't done yet. Keeps pushing lower. Tons of block orders now there. This, bam. I don't know if you guys see that. That is what true exhaustion looks like. It's that, and here even more, bam. So that's like a double exhaustion there. And we saw price capitulation, more than 10 points, but it's about that huge, speed. Although the flurry of prints coming in, that's real capitulate. That's real exhaustion. That's what we had to wait for. And if I had put in my position, all of it, if I had added it there in the 750s, if I had traded this like a, like I should have, and not like a fucking coward, I should not have taken one bit off until that happened. And that's it. I think I stopped the video here because that was basically it. This thing ended up going even lower than that, but the safe trade is into that exhaustion, which was this one here. After that, we did end up going another, actually quite a bit, 30 or 40